Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're discussing the 3 most likely ways that the Flood are going to return. However, before I start, I'd just like to say that I am now officially partnered with the Halo Archive. The Halo Archive is a fantastic Halo lore website that is full of avid fans like you and I. They've got excellent blog posts, write-ups, and forums that are literally filling to the brim with like-minded Halo fans. So why not go over there, make an account, read the write-ups, check out the forums. I can assure you, you will not be disappointed. So real quick before we start, don't forget to leave a like on the video. Let's try and hit 300 on this video. Now the first most likely way that the Flood will return is via Cortana and her infection by the Logic Plague. Now this, in my opinion, is the most likely way. I've spoken about the Logic Plague in videos before and how it could explain Cortana's actions and behaviour in Halo 5. So, if Cortana is infected by the Logic Plague, she was infected, in my opinion, with intent. My theory is that in the time gap between Chief leaving High Charity in Halo 2 and coming back to rescue Cortana in Halo 3, the seeds for the Logic Plague were planted and laid within Cortana's code. This is because during this time, as we know, she entered a very long conversation with the Gravemind, with literally nobody else to talk to but him. This is evident from the ending of Halo 2, where she agrees to answer many of his questions. So during this time, the Gravemind laid the seeds, and when Cortana went truly rampant during Halo 5, these seeds came into fruition, leading to the full-blown infection of the Logic Plague that we likely see in Halo 5. Now, this is where I get back to the intent. The Gravemind likely knew that his Flood force wasn't exactly going to be big enough or strong enough to destroy humanity and the Covenant, so he planted the plague within Cortana, so that even if he died and wasn't successful, the Flood would still stand a very strong chance at taking over the galaxy. Soon after she went rampant, the Logic Plague would begin to take over, she'd begin to defect, and begin following the original intent of the Gravemind. This explains why she's trying to weaken but not actually kill the races in the galaxy in Halo 5. Now, one of the most important things here is that she's not trying to kill them. She's using the Guardians to police their planets, which therefore shuts down interplanetary trade routes and therefore limits how food, supplies, resources, and arms as well, very importantly arms, are transferred between planets. This means that humanity is weak, low on resources and supplies, and extremely unarmed, which means that they are literally perfect for Cortana to either break Flood containment on a Halo installation and allow it to take control of ships, spread to populated planets and begin spreading, or for the Flood that have likely entirely consumed other galaxies to enter the Milky Way all at once and do exactly the same thing. The second most likely way that the Flood are going to return is via the Precursors' final test. So this was talked about quite a bit by the Primordial in Halo Primordium, the novel. In layman's terms, the Primordial basically says the Forerunners were never meant to inherit the mantle. Humanity would succeed the Forerunners in order to be tested for inheriting the mantle. This basically says that defeating the Forerunners isn't the be-all end-all in terms of holding the mantle. It's just the penultimate step to holding it. Also, when looking at current events, the Forerunners could very easily translate to being the created. So, let's talk about this test. It could mean one of 3 things. 1. Once humanity has defeated the Forerunners/created, the Flood are going to return, but in a much larger force. A force consisting of all of the galaxies that have previously been infested with the Flood combined. A force which is absolutely insurmountably bigger than the one that humanity faced previously. 2. Instead of the Flood actually returning, the Precursors will return as the ultimate test for humanity. Now this would still link to the Flood, and their return would almost certainly be accompanied by the Flood, seeing as most of the Precursors who survived the Forerunners' attack ground themselves down into a dust that would allow themselves to be reformed at a later date. This dust, as we know, corrupted, leading to them being reformed as the Flood. Or 3, the Flood don't actually return at all, and instead it's just the remaining Precursors, but let's save this theory for another video some other time. Now my final reasoning for the Flood's return is Oni and how far they're willing to go to save humanity. During Hunt the Signal last year, we had a few gifs of some DNA that were released from Halsey's archives. Now, these could very easily be from Halsey's testing of Spartan augmentations on the Spartan 2 program inductees, but this one in particular makes me think that it's something far more sinister. In fact, after looking at this GIF in particular, the rest now look a lot more like a bacteria or virus of some sort, in this case the good old Flood. So if this is the Flood, what does it mean in terms of them returning? Well, there once existed a man named Major John Smith, who was part of an ONI team set up to research the Flood. This confirms that Oni are, or at some point were, researching the Flood, and there are likely many more active teams participating in this research. So, what if in a typical zombie apocalypse movie style, one of the subjects Flood research is carried out on happens to escape from a lab? It's possible, it's very tacky, yet possible. So here's a much more reasonable, believable way that Oni could leak the Flood, given what we learnt about how dark and willing to cover up their secrets they are from Hunt the Truth. What if Oni had been attempting to work on a cure for the Flood, and what we see in these gifs is actually part of the cure, and they simulated a very small Flood outbreak in a small locale to see if they could distribute the cure in an effective time span to make it even worthwhile using. This could be on a number of subjects on a Halo ring, or maybe just like a small town on a local colony. Of course the cure wouldn't end up working and the Flood would end up spreading, as you'd expect, which would lead to the return of the Flood. Or, what if this bacteria is part of a benign, harmless version of the Flood that Oni have created to counterattack a Flood outbreak? It would work by infecting humans with a version of the Flood that literally does nothing, just makes other Flood forms ignore them as they already think they're infected. Testing on this could go wrong on, say, a UNSC science and testing ship, which would lead to that ship being entirely engulfed by the Flood, thus causing the Flood to spread and return. Now, I know all of these Oni-related theories are extremely far-fetched, but these gifs, on top of what we learnt about their shady side from Hunt the Truth, really make me think that Oni leaking the Flood is a possibility, and my god would it be an awesome storyline. And that's all for today guys, thanks a lot for watching. Let me know your theories in the comments on how the Flood are going to return. I absolutely love reading them. The next video is going to be a discussion surrounding this little piece of concept art recently released that calls Atriox from Halo Wars 2 the Didact Hunter, which is a massive piece of information. Thanks a lot for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next video.